prime time. It's prime time. It's prime time. It's prime time. It's prime time. Prime time power show. Good evening and welcome to the Primetime Power Show right here live on Primetime Power Radio, which is featured on the TuneIn, Radio Line, Radio Deck, and Deezer apps. Search for Primetime Power Radio. Apps are available on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Quick download. Any of the radio applications will be a great option for you to be able to check out the Primetime Power Show right here on Primetime Power Radio. Also, we're streaming on PrimetimePowerShow.com as well as PrimetimePowerRadio.com, and we offer radio that uplifts, inspires, encourages, and informs. So we've arrived at show 425 of the Primetime Power Show, and as always, we are very glad and very happy that you took the opportunity to take a listen to us tonight. Before we get started, I want to give thanks to our awesome supporter, the O Insurance Group LLC. They offer great services for all your health and life insurance needs. Give the O Insurance Group LLC a call, 844-585-8436. The number again is 844-585-8436. Also, you can learn more about their wonderful services that they offer by checking out their website, oinsurancegroup.com. That's oinsurancegroup.com. Also, want to give thanks to our sponsor, MadeWorks, working for your success. For professional websites, computer systems, small business support, and more. Check out MadeWorks by going to their website at madeworks.com to get all the information in relation to their services. Also, if you're ready to be served, you can give them a call at 484-466-5460. The number again is 484-466-5460. And if you have a question and you prefer to send it by email, you can email MadeWorks at info@madeworks.com. By the way, I'm Derek May along with Tiffany Joyner and Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton coming up on the Primetime Power Show tonight. First up is our segment, Uplift Today, and we're going to get the segment started off tonight with our words of encouragement, which is always meant to uplift your spirit. Tonight, our scripture reference, we're going to come from the book of Philippians, chapter 3, verse 13, just highlighting one verse tonight. Once again, we're going to come from the book of Philippians, chapter 3, verse 13, so that's what's coming up on our first segment on Uplift Today with our words of encouragement. Our second segment, the Coaching Companion with Tiffany Joyner, the topic tonight is getting beyond the surface in our conversations. Our third segment, the Place Decision with Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton, the topic tonight is Your Harvest Will Come. In our last segment, I'm going to come back, Derek May, with our final segment of the evening, Business Knowledge Down. And tonight, we're going to talk about the topic, the importance of website maintenance. So, hey, that's what's coming up on the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. As we mentioned, a lot of ways you can check out the broadcast, the TuneIn, Radio Line, Radio Tech, and Deezer apps. Just search for Primetime Power Radio. Also streaming on PrimetimePowerShow.com as well as PrimetimePowerRadio.com. Do us a favor out there, tell your family members and friends about the Primetime Power Show. If you happen to see our postings on social media, do us a favor, do a quick share and let others know, and we would definitely appreciate that. So what we're going to do at this time, let's take a break right here on the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. And on the other side, we're going to get started with our first segment of the evening, Uplift Today, with our words of encouragement. You're listening to the Primetime Power Show on Primetime Power Radio, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. We all can use something to uplift us, a receiving, a gift that aims to inspire us, to provide some encouragement in a time like never before, and getting knowledge that benefits us and keeps us informed. Welcome to the Primetime Power Show, a radio show that aims to do everything that will give and equip you with the power that supports you in every facet in the everyday journey walks of life. Weekly, a team gathers to serve you with an intent to bless, so the impact is truly real. 4 segments prepared to plan and ready to be verbalized for the world to receive. Tuning in gives you access of our outpouring from our hearts to yours. Featuring radio host Derek May, segment Uplift Today. He is our God forever and ever, and he will guide us until we die. So that tells us that God is committed to the entirety of our existence. And just ponder that for a minute. I'm talking about the wonderful assurance of knowing tonight that God can't lose us ever. There's no neighborhood, there's no area we can go in that is unfamiliar to him. For he is with you and he is with me always. And he is all for us all the time. Featuring radio host Tiffany Joyner, segment The Coaching Companion.
What are modifications? Pretty much changes or adjustments that need to be put in place to what you've already set out to do. So often this occurs when you aren't getting the results you desire. For example, if let's say you're on an exercise regimen and you've seen little to no results, you may want to increase the frequency of activity. This is a modification. Or you may also need to examine what you're consuming, what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, because both play a significant role in determining your success in this area.
Featuring radio host Dr. Christina Williams, segment From a Woman's Perspective.
Whether it is your political people, whether it is your best friend, your children, we need to see what it is mentally where they are so that we could collaborate and find out how we can make things better. Because I truly believe that all the crime that we have experienced has been from trauma, has been from crisis, and has been from mental breakdowns.
Featuring radio host Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton, segment The Place of Decision.
But the Bible says all the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. In other words, God looks at our motives. So look what chapter 16 verse 3 says. Commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. Commit your works, commit your plan, your projects, your endeavors to the Lord, and your plans will be established. God will give order to them. God will put you in the right direction, and he will show you how to make this thing work in your favor.
This is the Primetime Power Show, featured on Primetime Power Radio. Radio that uplifts, inspires, encourages, and informs. Mayworks offers the tech and business support you need to help you succeed. With a range of services such as professional websites, branding, software solution implementation, social media creation and promotion, tech and business support, and more, we can work to get you what you need to have to produce the result you always wanted to achieve. To get started and learn more, simply go to mayworks.com or call us at 484-466-5460 or send us an email at info@mayworks.com. Let's get this business production started. Mayworks, working for your success. You are now listening to Primetime Power Radio, radio that uplifts, inspires, encourages, and informs. The Primetime Power Show can be heard on many different platforms via podcasts such as Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and many platforms that support the podcast feature. Just search for Primetime Power Show, add us as a favorite, and you'll receive a notification each and every time that the Primetime Power Show adds new content via podcast. So check out the Primetime Power Show via podcast today. Primetime Power Radio offers talk, inspirational music, and more. Are you looking for a platform to share your content? Consider Primetime Power Radio as an option for radio shows and recorded media to share, such as podcasts and more. Primetime Power Radio has slots available to choose from to secure the best day and time and offers you an extended audience to give you the exposure and avenue to be heard. Primetime Power Radio is available on many platforms such as TuneIn, RadioLine, RadioDeck, and Deezer apps. Just simply search for Primetime Power Radio and we're ready to be listened to. The radio station also streams on PrimetimePowerRadio.com. Advertising options are also available that you can take advantage of. Learn more about Primetime Power Radio at PrimetimePowerRadio.com or email your inquiry to info@PrimetimePowerRadio.com. Primetime Power Radio, radio that uplifts, inspires, encourages, and informs. The Yellow Insurance Group specializes in health and life insurance services that cater to meeting your needs. The Yellow Insurance Group provides expert services in health insurance assistance such as Medicare education, medical advantage plans, Medicare supplement plans, prescription drug plans, dental and vision, group health insurance, and the Affordable Care Act. The Yellow Insurance Group LLC also delivers professional services in life insurance assistance such as final expense, term life, whole life, universal life, and variable universal. Interested in getting the help you need right now? For more information, call Sharita Odoms at 1-844-585-THEO. Once again, that's 1-844-585-THEO or 1-844-585-8436, 1-844-585-8436. DO Insurance Group, LLC. Health and life insurance done with you in mind as we change one life, one day at a time. And welcome back to the Primetime Power Show right here live on Primetime Power Radio. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for show 425 right here live on Primetime Power Radio on the Primetime Power Show. Before I get started with my segment, by the way, I'm Derek May. What we're going to do at this time, we're going to share our announcements here on the Primetime Power Show. So give us a few minutes to share our announcements, and I'm going to come back and we're going to start off with our first segment tonight, Uplift Today with the Words of Encouragement. We'll be right back. Are you interested in being a show guest on the Primetime Power Show? The Primetime Power Show offers live radio interviews. To submit your request to be a show guest, simply go to our website, primetimepowershow.com, and click the Contact Us link. On the Contact Us page, scroll down and complete our contact form. In the Contact Option drop-down menu, select Be a Show Guest. In your message section, please include your interview topic, bio, and any other relevant information. Once the form is submitted, our team will review your request and reach back out via email to reply to your request. If approved, we will connect with you to schedule you for a future date and time to be featured on the Primetime Power Show on one of our segments that are shared on the show. Details will be provided prior to the show to have you ready for your live radio show appearance. Another option to submit your show guest request is to email us at guest@primetimepowershow.com. Please include in the email your full name, phone number, email, interview topic, and bio details are required for proper submission. In the subject of the email, please use Be a Show Guest. The Primetime Power Show offers some of our previous content on YouTube and via podcast. To access our YouTube channel, go to YouTube and search for Primetime Power Show. Do us a favor, please subscribe to our channel and like our content as well. It will help us analyze interest and let us know you're listening and find the show useful to you. To listen via podcast, open up your favorite media app that supports podcasts and search for Primetime Power Show. Please add us as a favorite as well. More of our content will be available for you to listen to. The Primetime Power Show now offers merch, t-shirts in black and white with the Primetime Power Show color logo, and hoodies in white and light gray with the Primetime Power Show logo as well. All merch can be purchased on speakitwear.com. That's speakitwear.com. For a discount of $3, you can use code PPS3 at checkout when you apply the coupon code. Thank you for your consideration and support of the Primetime Power Show. We appreciate your listenership and helping us financially fund what we do. The Primetime Power Show offers advertising opportunities for your business, organization, and personal endeavor. We offer audio commercials, web banner ads, show mentions, and social media promotions. To get a feel of what we can offer you, listen to our self-produced audio commercials played on the show, or go to primetimepowershow.com and click the advertise link for all the details. Take advantage of our special audio commercial that we have as well. Consider advertising with the Primetime Power Show today, and we'll create a package that's suited just for you. The Primetime Power Show would love to hear from you. Your feedback is important to us. Please connect with us via social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search for Primetime Power Show, or you can go to primetimepowershow.com and click the social media badges on the homepage. Once on the platform, please feel free to send us a direct message. You can also email us at feedback@primetimepowershow.com, and we promise we will respond back to you. Be a part and help us spread the word in relation to the Primetime Power Show. Please share our posts on social media, tell a friend or family member about the Primetime Power Show, or simply share our website, primetimepowershow.com. Together, we all can contribute to sharing content that aims to uplift, inspire, encourage, and inform. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our announcements. We appreciate your listenership and great support of the Primetime Power Show. We value your time and investment in all that we deliver to you. All right. Thank you so much for listening to our announcements. We're going to jump right into the show tonight, show 425 of the Primetime Power Show. Once again, I'm Derek May. And as I mentioned before the break, for Uplift Today, for our scripture reference, we're going to lift up the book of Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. Once again, we're going to read the book of Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. And as usual, each and every week, I like to read two versions of the word. Tonight, we're going to come from the New King James Version and also the New Living Translation. So do me a favor out there. Don't let me read this all by myself. Grab your Bibles, read along with me, whether you got the old book, you got it on your smartphone, tablet, desktop, laptop. The word is all over the place, which is a wonderful thing. It's very, very accessible. So please turn with me to the book of Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. I'm going to start with the New King James Version, and verse 13 reads, "Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead." The New Living Translation says it like this, according to the book of Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. New Living Translation, "No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead." So here we see in this word that was just referenced tonight, it comes from the Apostle Paul, and he wrote this particular part as part of his letter, this particular epistle. This letter was intended for the church of Philippi. And what it does, it relays a message that was intended to first and foremost to lift up the people, to express the joy that he was having in the conquest that he was on. And it also expressed glory to God, and also elaborated, and it also highlighted on the strength to be able to maneuver, meaning the pressing to the newness, to the things that lies ahead. So all of this that he stated in this particular verse, it can serve to us tonight as something that can be encouraging. It can be a very positive push for us as well if we embrace what Paul is trying to share with us this evening. So the whole theme of this particular verse was slotted, is centered around being able to do what? Press towards the goal, pressing towards the mark. And when we think about that word goal, goals are something that we all set in some way, shape, and form in our lives. I'm sure many of us have done it throughout our entire lives. Most of the time, we probably do it at the beginning of the year when the new year comes and we're rejuvenated and we have a lot of expectation and hope, and we throw some things out there and we want to have that true level of trying to get things done and get things accomplished. So that's one of the things I think as human beings is a very naturally instinctive thing that we do from time to time, depending on where we are in a particular time frame in our lives, the timing of when we want to do something, or if we just need to get something done that really needs to get our attention that we were probably lacking in before, but now there's more of an urgency. So when we think about goals, goals are intended for us to strive towards tasks successfully, so then we can experience the result of completion, because that's what it should be all about, getting it done and having that reward of accomplishment as well, saying that, you know what, I started out on this journey and I seen it all the way through, and now I got to the finish line, and now I can raise my hand, and now I can celebrate, and I can be gleeful in regards to knowing that I accomplished this thing and I saw it all the way through. But it also shows us in regards to goals that when we set them, we have a pursuit in mind that if we want to start and we definitely want to finish, we want to see the result that comes from it. And a lot of us, what we set out to do, if you think about it, it usually factors on how our mental and physical approach is at the moment, because a lot of times we have the idea typically in our minds, we have the concept of what we want to do, what we normally have a grasp of, and hopefully in all of that, we have the proper direction to be able to proceed in it as well. The how I am going to go about this, the how I am going to actually do this. But there's also still a part that we need to have that triggers us to be able to move on that thing in the first place and to get us going in the process. And the caveat sometimes is that conditions are factors and best timing may not always be at our optimal favor. But despite sometimes of the imperfection of the readiness of the time to be able to go forth and do these things, there's still going to be occasions in our life where we still have to go in a direction moving straight ahead anyhow. And sometimes the holdup in this is that the before things that happen to us. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Usually those times where we tried things in the past and we experienced them, but we had the result of failure. So sometimes our biggest thing that is against us is that we'll have some hiccups, we'll have some flaws, we'll have some shortcomings or some poor efforts of the past that we saw previously. And sometimes they can factor into how we move in our present and going into our future. And for some, though we're pursuing all these endeavors, it may not lead us and we may not feel totally and completely confident that we're going to be able to achieve. We might not have a bunch of ultra excitement in us to get rolling and to get going depending on what the task is. So the question tonight is, how do we stop counting the times of underachievement of the before that holds up our best outlook to have and not dwell in the sorrows of the missed success of the past? And another question I want us to think about tonight as well is, how do we even respond with an approach and a mindset of that this time around is going to work out for me? It's going to be better. It's going to be what I believe is ultimately going to be for my life. So as we notice, Paul in this verse, what did he do? He made a very conscientious decision, didn't he? He decided that during his journey, that first and foremost, no man shall not hinder him. Nothing that he did before in the past was going to block him now. Nothing was going to stop him from moving and proceeding on. Nothing was going to interrupt disrupt him. Nothing was going to distract him. Nothing was going to deter him or even scare him off and affect his pace in any way, shape, and form, and getting to the present, getting to the tomorrow that now has a great anticipation of being better, as Paul stated. So Paul has so many obstacles, as we know. If you read and you learned about the history of him prior to where we are at in this verse now, we know there was obstacles in his way, and it could have been very easy for him to say, you know what, I'm tired of all this stuff that is always interfering with what I'm trying to do and the calling that God has me on and the journey that he has me on. He could have said, you know what, this is too tough, this is too challenging, this is just far too much, and he could have even doubted himself and said, I'm not even suited for it. So he could have surrendered to all the pressure and all the pain of all those things. But Paul understood that dealing with anything that came along the way, the journeys, no matter what it was in our life, that it was still worth it because it was all in God's plan and purpose that he had for his particular life, and it goes for us as well. You know, the word reminds us in the book of Isaiah chapter 43 verse 18 and 19, and particularly I'm raising up the ESV version, which is the English Standard Version. It tells us what? Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So Paul knew all along that with God, and that's the key component right there, that he couldn't allow the things of the past, that he couldn't allow the prior, the cruelness of life experiences to stop him from still going on, for still moving on and reaching the heights, knowing that all has not been accomplished yet. There's a lot more that he needed to do. There's plenty more that was going to come and he was going to embark on. So what Paul did, he held on to that great hope and he relayed it to the church of Philippi, right? In the letter. And he also promised that God offers understanding throughout the entire journey, throughout the entire stages of it. And then ultimately at the end of the day, what's going to happen? There's going to be a mighty reward, and that every good intentional thing is going to eventually manifest itself in his life. And there are many times in our lives, and I think about my life as well, where I wasn't really sure how things was going to turn out, especially in those times of hardship and struggle. You know, many of us have been there and we have our stories that we can tell and relay to others, but there's moments like that that make you question, that make you wonder what your purpose is and where you are. Why aren't you in a different state or in a different place than you thought you would be? You know, there's always going to be some moments that we think about that may feel like the impact of the effect of it has been like things are just not growing, things are just not reaping, the harvest is nowhere to be found, and there's no signs that we see at that present moment that will tell us that we should keep on going, that we should keep on moving. And I even recall personally in my lifetime when I was just laying in my bed and I was thinking about all kinds of things, especially when things weren't going right in my life. I'm in my bedroom, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and it was times I didn't even have an answer to things that I really needed a breakthrough in. I was worn down by the attacks of life and even nursing my own pain without a real way to even know how to heal myself. But you know what? I still remember who I had. I still knew that God was on my side regardless of how the world and what it may have looked like to me. I believe that God was still going to make a way for me. And the greatest thing you can do in times of strain and in the greatest times of adversity, dealing with your wounds, is understanding that regardless of what I'm going through, I still got to make sure that I get up. I still got to know that I got to face this new day. So I want to encourage those out there to embrace it. No matter what it has, get through that one day first. Get up and then begin to see what the next day is going to offer you. And then also realize that over time, as you do this each and every day, that you're going to become resilient, and the power to never settle now begins to energize you, and it becomes a great force to now begin to reignite you, and now you begin to emerge back up again. Because that goal is authored, it is given to God for you to still have a chance for you to score big in life. So stop adding the periods and stop adding the ending chapters to things that have not yet been fully told in your life. To never develop a mentality that dwells on your miscues. We've all made mistakes. None of us are perfect out there. Stop pondering on the misses that you had in life, or even thinking giving less and giving in to the woes of the past is ever going to be something that should be acceptable from a perspective to be able to still move forth. But instead, what we should do, we should come with the perspective that Paul had in this verse tonight, and we should look ahead to the hills which cometh for our help. So what I wanted to do tonight, I just wanted to share some points that we can lift up tonight so that we can motivate ourselves, that we can encourage ourselves, and we can use this great example of Paul that we have that has been written in the Holy Word to be able to inspire us tonight. The first thing I want us to think about is this, is that we got to make sure that no matter what, that we keep our mind on the prize. And just like Paul, God's glory alone was enough for him to stay steady and to never ever waver in the history of the past. He refused to do that. that. And he not only did not accept anything that wanted to still hang over and pull him back, he even took the opportunity to shift it. And he said, you know what? Not only is it for me, I want to write a letter. I want to encourage others to let them know that you can make it, despite of that getting to see all that is for you is still worth it, all with God, because God always gives the possibility of everything is going to still be for you. So the great hope we're talking about, or what is still before him, to be able to still say, hey, I'm going to journey, I'm going to get there because I know there's a great incentive for me to get to each milestone, and it was intended for me to reach and acquire. The same thing for you. So when we say focus, and when we continuously keep our drive, and we keep it in the mode of, hey, you know what? Despite what's going on currently, even if it's not flowing and going the way that I thought it would, there's still some more things in my life that's to come for me. We still need to give ourselves a real chance to say, you know what? I need to find out. I need to experience all that God has for me. So we have to know the prize value, right? It's extremely high. And being able to say, you know what? I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to win it over the past. And regardless of that intense competition that it gives us to fall short, because it's always an enemy, it's always an anti, right? That's trying to challenge us and rise up and trying to stop our momentum. We have to still say, you know what? I don't care what it is. It's not an acceptable outcome to me or to you, because we know that when we win in the end, it's going to allow us to receive the premium of getting to God's ultimate greatness. And here is the ultimate prize. Think about it. According to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 and 25, guess what it says? It says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Verse 25 says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that's going to last forever. Isn't that a wonderful verse to think about and keep into our minds and keep us in the perspective of always keeping our eyes on the prize? And ultimately, we are not here for ourselves. We are here for God. So the next thing is this, is that don't let weariness rob you. And I know that's a constant challenge because we all been in that placement, right? But for many of us who lived enough years know that getting weary, it does happen from time to time, because the weariness tells us to see if we can reach deep down in us, if we still got something more out of us that we are currently producing. Can we tap into it? And the reality is that we do get tired. We're human. We will get fatigued by the weight that life puts on us at times, because it does get hard. It does get difficult. It does get strenuous, to be honest about it. But in all those things that affect our feelings and tough moments, we always got to keep in perspective that they're temporary, that we do actually transition to new phases, that we do actually get to new states of being all the time. So we're never going to stay in one particular place and be in one particular emotional state, right? So we have to say, you know what? I want to give God a chance to be able to get through, regardless of what the thoughts are running all in my mind and what our bodies want to resort to, as far as wanting to just slow down and just simply stop and give up. Because the thing about weariness, if you think about it, weariness can rob a lot from us if we don't understand the timing of how long we should take a break from the things that drains us. See, sometimes it's okay to pause and take a break and to gather ourselves, but we don't want to stay stuck on the sideline. We want to refute the tempting of not resuming. We want to play again. We don't want to stay stuck on pause. So we got to understand that if I need a moment to get myself together, that doesn't mean that we're saying we give up and we retire on the spot and we release ourselves from the position that God has placed us in. But instead, it is just simply a sign that's letting us know, like, yeah, it's taking a lot from us. It's not an easy task. It's going to ask a lot from us. But if we're still breathing, and I'm sure if you listen to me, you're breathing, it didn't take everything out of us. We need to make sure that we stay in the lane of the race that we're running. So we still have our position, and to understand that, yeah, we might slow down a little bit, but we still are going to be an active participant. We still have our eyes on the finish line, and to know that it's still reachable no matter how long it takes. So much of that, if you think about it, it can be gained when we simply cross the finish line, when we recognize what is before us, and we find a way to transform that weariness that we felt at one point into now saying, you know what? I'm going to endure. I'm going to see it through. I'm going to be a warrior, because at the end of the day, warriors will triumph and they will experience the victory. And then the last thing is this: we got to understand that God didn't bring you this far for nothing. And I'm going to say that again. Remember always, God didn't bring you this far for nothing. And some of us may not have had what the world deemed as a great life story. You know, some people may not know our name at all, and we were never famous, or we never got highlighted or spotlighted in any other way. And probably for some of us, unfortunately, we may have had more pain and more problems in our lives than positivity and pluses, right? But Paul's testimony here tonight, what it shows in his life, it shows us that that the current state can always change and that more is always on the horizon. And we all have a purpose and we all have a reason tonight, each and every one of us. Even if we're not very clear on it at the moment, that's where we can go to God, we can ask him, we can seek his face, and we can ask him to reveal those things to us. And to understand that we're not created with no cause or no clear design or with no clear intention. We have to understand tonight that the life that was given to each and every one of us is truly meaningful, each and every one of us. And it has so much for us to unveil, so many things that we still need to unpack that we haven't even been able to approach yet, but we're working ourselves to get to those places. And I can attest personally myself that you should never, ever count your past as the thing that will sum up your life in total, because there's always greater. There's always going to be more that we have to discover. There's always going to be the newness, and eventually we're going to steer our way and we're going to meet it where it is. So we've made it through quite a bit. If you think about that, think about the past 3 years. I mean, we've had a pandemic, we've had a recession, we've had so many things that probably a lot of us didn't even foresee, but yet and still here we are. We're still moving, we're still living each and every day, and we're still trying to get where we are supposed to be. And think about from a recent history perspective, how it illustrates that we're still existing. And it's not by luck, and it's not by just some randomness that we happen to be the ones left over. It has a purpose. It has a reason that we're still around, because there's more for us to accomplish. There's more for us to realize. There's more for us to seize, and there's more for us to do as well. So what I want to echo tonight is make sure that you understand who created you. God, the Almighty One, and really value yourself more than you ever have in your life. Do it right now. And then guess what's going to happen? You're going to begin to see the result of it and what it's ultimately going to be when you value yourself more than you probably do right now. And I believe God is ultimately going to reveal all that he wants to give to you. And you're going to also see something, and you're going to know that God is someone that is real, and that's someone that was always on your side, someone that always knew that you can accomplish great things, and ultimately, the most important thing, he's always someone that loves you unconditionally. Because God also, he's generous. We know that as well. He's the giver of all things. So just give God the opportunity to be able to deliver what is presently slotted, to be able to arrive in your present and in your future. His timing, of course, but God has something wonderful for you. And your existence alone, think about this, is a gift in itself. And the longevity that you get is all established for you to be able to experience the length of greater additions that's going to be all a part of your life. So reach for something, because you are truly somebody. So as I wrap up these words of encouragement tonight, I believe that now is a great time. I believe that this moment in our existence where we are, we need to be more courageous and more bold than ever, because the hour is present for us to be able to respond and now be able to really strive to get all the way through and get to all the things that God has called us to do. No more anchors to hold us down anymore. We're going to say we're going to lift those up again because we want to move forward. There's going to be no more ropes that's going to tie us up and hold us up and keep us bound. But like Paul said, we're going to be unfazed by whatever happened to us in the past, the things that before. But now we're going to look forward. Now we're going to pursue things, and we're going to have a clear purpose of really getting to what lies ahead for each and every one of us. It's waiting to meet us. Did you know that? It's waiting to greet us. It's waiting to give us the great blessing that it has for us, because nothing is worth the distraction of getting there to reach it. So don't allow the enemy to trick you, to fool you into things that will make you take back steps. God wants us to go full-fledged ahead. Nothing has priority over you reaching what God has called you to get to. So I want to encourage you tonight, have a goal, or have goals. I know many of us have more than one, and have one of those goals, and all the goals, I should say. Make sure that God is the leader of your life, and that he is directing you, and that he's providing you that mighty leadership along the way, because that's going to give you right intention. That's going to give you the right desire. And when you have that combination, it's going to unlock the greatest achievements that you will ever experience in your life. And as we heard on our scripture reference, Paul's approach was to write that letter to be a motivator to the people. And I want to be a motivator using Paul's verse tonight to you, so that we can get to the places so we can gain the goodness that God has for us. And we also got to remember Paul, how passionate he was and how much he had total conviction as well, because those elements, that's what it takes for us to get where we are called to be. So let this word tonight, let this message tonight, let this verse tonight, let this words of encouragement be tonight. Let it just be a stimulus for you. Let it be a kickstart for you to say, you know what? I need to start getting there. No longer I'm going to let fear be a factor no more, but I'm going to let the highest influence instead lead me. I'm going to let God be the reason that I say, you know what? I'm going to take his hand and I'm going to let him guide me and I'm going to allow him to get me to what's next for me. And then that's going to be the determining factors to live, to have a purpose of really leaving and moving in the direction of our present and future and leaving nothing left on the table, because I'm going all in and I'm going to make sure that with God, the ultimate combination, the ultimate teammate that you could ever have in your life, that together great things are going to be met and they're going to come forth in your life. And the manifestation, I believe, is going to really take place like never before. So that's going to do it for me, my words of encouragement. As I mentioned, we came out of the book of Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. We lifted up two versions of the word, the New King James Version as well as the New Living Translation. I'm going to read the New Living Translation again. Do me a favor, as I always ask each and every week, jot these scriptures down. Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. New Living Translation says this: "No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it." So Paul is saying, I didn't get there yet, but I'm on my way. But he's saying this is what it's going to take to get there. But he said, I focus on one thing, forgetting the past, because he knows how much of a hindrance that can be, and he understands that. And then he concludes and says, and looking forward to what lies ahead. So many of us out there are probably still dwelling, still talking about that old stuff that we can't change anyhow. That's history if you think about it. You know, you can't bring it back again. So the focus here, and Paul is sharing with us tonight, that we need to understand what's done is done, and that we should move forward, because God has so much more in store for us, and we just got to trust him. We got to believe in him. We got to move like he tell us and not be hesitant, but let's be bold and let's be courageous and let's get all that God has called us to have and for us to experience. So that's going to do it for me tonight. I'm Derek May. Thank you so much for listening to my segment. Coming up next on the Primetime Power Show, our second segment of the evening, Coaching Companion with Tiffany Joyner. You're listening to the Primetime Power Show live on Primetime Power Radio, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. Do you want to support quality programming that aims to uplift, inspire, encourage, and inform, and also gain exposure and ignite your brand through multiple ways of promotion? The Primetime Power Show offers advertising opportunities that range from audio commercials, web banner ads, show mentions, social media promotions, and much more. To learn more about the advertising opportunities we have available, simply go to primetimepowershow.com and click the advertise link to access the page with all the details. You can also send your inquiry via email to advertise@primetimepowershow.com as well. We have custom advertising packages that cater to you to get the best options you want to campaign. Join a great team and media outlet by advertising with the Primetime Power Show today. Primetime Power Show is an online radio show that is broadcast weekly on Primetime Power Radio, streaming on primetimepowershow.com, primetimepowerradio.com, the TuneIn, Radio Line, Radio Deck, and Cloud Radio apps, and posted on other online media outlets that support podcasts and on Mixcloud. The views and opinions expressed by the different radio hosts and guests that we broadcast are not necessarily views or opinions of the Primetime Power Show, although we allow the freedom of speech in sharing views and opinions. We are an internet and online media only radio show. Therefore, we are not governed by the FCC or any other agencies, so we're able to play music and discuss topics of our choosing. We respect and execute our programming accordingly and be mindful of others, as our purpose is to uplift, inspire, encourage, and inform. Please contact the Primetime Power Show via email at feedback@primetimepowershow.com or complete our contact form on primetimepowershow.com with any questions that you may have. Visit our official show website, primetimepowershow.com, for information about our show. Thank you for your understanding and support. And welcome back to the Primetime Power Show right here live on Primetime Power Radio. At this time, we're going to transition to the next segment of the evening, the Coaching Companion with Tiffany Joyner.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, my segment is titled Getting Beyond the Surface in Our Conversation. So the first thing I want you to do is think about your everyday conversations. What are they like? Who are the people that you're normally in dialogue with? And what is the depth of those conversations? Because when we talk about going beyond the surface, we're talking about going beyond just the common chatter that you may have. We are digging deeper into who a person is. A traditional greeting of "how are you" would not be answered or settled upon with a fine if you're talking about going beyond the surface, because those that want conversations beyond the surface, the initiator of those conversations, they desire more. And what that means is they are wanting to know more on the specifics of our life. They're not just settling for fine. This may include how you're doing emotionally, physically, with some degree of detail. They also may be requesting to know about how your relationships are and how you're actually navigating through those relationships in your life. Because most of the time, the people who are requesting to go beyond the surface in conversations with us, they desire to take a more active role in our lives. They're showing their investment in who we are and desiring a deeper commitment to the relationship. It's really great to have, these types of people in our lives, because you know why? They provide substance, which is more of the meat, right? They provide this meat in the conversations and the interactions that we have with them, right? They're looking for more. And over time, because of the depth of care and commitment that they have, we may even find ourselves trusting these individuals in a way we wouldn't necessarily do with others. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to explore some of the benefit of having conversations that go beyond the surface and the impact that they have on our overall relationships with others. The first thing is we get to learn more about a person. When we think about going beyond the surface, we get to learn more about a person. When we have these conversations with people, we get to know who a person truly is beyond what we see initially, again, on the surface. We learn things that possibly the average person doesn't know. The second thing is we develop trust. When we disclose personal things or things, again, that are the meat or the substance, when we provide those things about ourselves to particular people and know that this person will keep our confidence, what happens? Naturally, we develop a trust in that person. And the third thing is friendship, because over time, by getting to know people beyond the surface, it puts us in a place where we can really develop friendships and hopefully camaraderie. And the fourth thing is vulnerability. And this can actually go both ways, but I'm looking at the benefit of it. It puts us in a place where it encourages us to reveal intimate parts of who we are. And this, of course, requires us to let down our guard and develop a level of comfort, right? And this, of course, comes over time. And then the fifth thing is we can depend on these people when we're going beyond the surface. We can often depend on them to be truthful with us, to be honest with us. Because of the conversations that are going beyond the surface, we can depend on these people to reveal the truth to us about situations or occurrences that we may go to them and confide in them with. They also know how to lovingly tell us things that, again, others might try to, but because, again, we've developed this trust in them, we have a vulnerability and we have a friendship, again, we can depend on them to tell us the truth, but in a loving form, a loving way, right? So again, just to review those four things, again, we get to learn more about the person, we get to develop trust, we get to walk in friendship with that person, and also vulnerability, and then we depend on them for the truth. So those are the five benefits of that, going beyond the surface. And when we come back from break, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the challenges that may come from choosing not to have those conversations that are beyond the surface.
And we'll be right back on the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. The Primetime Power Show is available on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out content that features exclusive guest interviews, full shows, segments, our support offerings, and much more. To find us, just go to youtube.com and search for Primetime Power Show, or visit primetimepowershow.com and click on the YouTube social media badge to go directly to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and show your support for the Primetime Power Show. We appreciate your listenership and patronage. You are now listening to the Primetime Power Show, featured on the TuneIn, Radioline, and Radio Deck apps. Also streaming on primetimepowershow.com and primetimepowerradio.com, featuring talk, inspirational music, and more right here on Primetime Power Radio. Welcome back to the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. At this time, we're going to resume with the segment, The Coaching Companion, with Tiffany Joyner.
So we're back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of the challenges that may come from choosing not to have those conversations that are beyond the surface. So there's two simple things that happen. The first thing is you never really get to know people, right? Because if you're having conversations that are very surface, very base conversations, you really don't get to know the core of who they are. And what happens is you walk through life, you have lots of people that are associates, or again, people that you just have pretty base conversations with, and you don't really get to know, they don't really get to know the real you, and you really don't get to know who they are either. And it's somewhat isolated. And then the second thing is that naturally happens is, of course, you have limited friendships with others. So again, why might someone choose not to have these conversations? Why do some people choose not to go beyond the surface? Well, there may be various reasons for this. The first thing is they may have been vulnerable in the past and have gotten hurt. And because of that, they are unable to trust. Hence, they don't have these more in-depth conversations with others. Because what happens, if you're going to have these in-depth conversations with others, it's going to involve you giving up pieces of who you are, personal things that, again, are beyond the surface. And you might not necessarily feel like you want to be in a position where you want to be vulnerable again, especially if you've gotten hurt in the past. So again, going back to they may have been vulnerable in the past. That was the first thing. And they've gotten hurt. And because of that, they aren't able to trust, right? And as I said, they've made a decision to navigate through life with an abundance of associates or majority of people that they just want to have small talk with or chit chat. And like I said, it isolates them, right? It puts them in a place where they're alone. They don't want to possibly be around other people. And they've made that conscious choice to live that way. That's what I was trying to get to. Although they may not always bask in that choice, it prevents them from being disappointment, right? From the disappointment that comes from what? Opening up with people and going beyond the surface. So again, although some people may not necessarily want that or make that choice for their lives in terms of not having these conversations, but because of that past hurt, right? Because of those things that have happened to them, they've made, again, that conscious choice to live that way, to make that choice not to go beyond the surface, because again, it may lead to disappointment and it's led to hurt in the past. Personally, I found it very difficult in my life to move beyond the surface in a lot of conversations. And what happens sometimes with me is, in my experience, is that people tend to store that information that I give them when I've made myself vulnerable, right? I put myself in a position of vulnerability and then they use it later. And that's so hurtful, right? Disappointing, because again, we've let down our guard. We've become vulnerable before people. And then what happens, we see that by being vulnerable, by going beyond the surface, it comes back to haunt us, to bite us, as so they say. So with going beyond the surface, there is a risk, right? Just like with any relationship that we enter into, there's always a risk. And when you go beyond the surface with an individual, again, you're taking that risk. And it can be worthwhile, because ultimately, if you take that risk and it works out, you've gained so much. You've gained a friend, you've gained camaraderie, you've gained someone you can trust. But unfortunately, if it goes the other way, what happens is you've put yourself in a position to be hurt, and you've put yourself in a position to be disappointed. And, that's a path that some of us may have experienced, and it's not a pleasant one. It's a hard walk. And something that when we're navigating and trying to get through life, making these choices as to who you're going to open up to and who you're not going to, who you're going to have these relationships with beyond the surface, it really takes a keen sense of discernment, knowing who you can have these conversations with. Because if you make the wrong choice, again, it's something that can lead to lots of pain and disappointment and hurt. But again, on the flip side, by discerning in the right direction, you've opened up yourself to friendships, to camaraderie, to people you can trust, people that you can rely on. And so when I think about these relationships and going beyond the surface and these conversations, there's a scripture that talks about conversations, and we always want our conversations to be uplifting. We want them to be edifying to people. We want them ultimately to be in a place where what we speak, what we say to people brings glory to God. So let's look at Colossians 4:6. It says, "Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. So that's what I want to leave everyone with tonight. Just again, that sense of discernment and knowing who we should have these conversations with. Again, because in the long run, it can avoid a lot of pain and disappointment. But again, knowing on the other side, it can lead to a sense of, it can lead to friendships. It can lead to real strong, lasting relationships. So that's what I want to leave you with tonight, everyone. And Derek, just want to ask you, in terms of having these conversations beyond the surface, do you find it's easy for you to do that with individuals? Do you find, like, in your life, in your experiences, what has it looked like having conversations beyond the surface with people?
No, I don't think it's easy for me. A lot of people, unfortunately, in my life, they're just not, authentic enough. I've unfortunately been around a lot of people that are really selfish and about themselves, and it's more about them instead about just the whole. And it really turns me off. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And I don't like to participate in friendships or associate relationship, whatever you want to call them, when it's so one-sided. I don't have to get exactly 50%, but I do need enough where I feel like, okay, this is even enough exchange where I feel like we can have a friendship that is mutually beneficial. And I mean, just being, who we are as just a decent, pleasant person. I'm not saying it like trying to get anything from anybody, but it's hard nowadays. And I know I'm a natural introvert as well, so that's like another element to it. But, and that doesn't help either. And I get it. I know it's a little bit of me, but it's not much of me, because I do give people an opportunity to be able to have conversations with me, and I listen to what they want to talk about. And usually it transitions to their issues and problems and all that other stuff. And that's fine. I don't mind being the ear, but it's always typically like one-sided when it comes to that. I never felt like, in very few cases, I felt like I could reciprocate and talk in that same way. And a few times that I did, I think you mentioned a piece in your segment, is that it's stored by that other person, and then they use it against you at the worst times, to throw it back at you. Like, they have the dart and they're throwing it at us where the bullseye. So it's very challenging trying to interact with people. Well, I found, because, naturally I'm a nice person, I'm a natural giver, but I have noticed as I've gotten older that people don't really reciprocate in the same manner. A lot of people, unfortunately, and I'm talking about my personal interactions, it's really more like, okay, give me your time, give me your attention, listen to what I got to say, and almost do what I want you to do. And then I don't really think about doing the same thing on the other side. So the balance is really not there. So I find personally that I'm at my most comfortable and most peaceful state when I'm just riding solo. And that doesn't mean that I totally neglect people and, I walk by people and don't say hello or nothing. No, I'm not that kind of person. But I do understand that, most of the people I know, and, I'm not saying this is a good thing or not, that it's more people that I just know. I wouldn't really call them a friend, if you know what I mean. Because I take that word literally. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. And I think it's a substantial difference between the two.
Yes. And it's hard, like you said, because, I'm an introvert too. And I tend to sort of, go solo in a lot of places. And it's very hard for me too to trust. Because like I said in the segment, you let down your walls. And as soon as you do that, you become a target. And it's really hard to place yourself in that position where you're having these really in-depth conversations with people, because you just never know who you can really trust. And that whole discernment piece, sometimes we feel we're using it, or I feel like it's in action, or that I was able to discern I can trust, but then some fails me. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I thought I could trust that person.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. It's such a letdown. I mean, let's be honest about it. You think that it's one thing, but it was just perception the whole time. It wasn't reality. And when you come to the realization of that, it makes you feel like, you know what? Like, wow, really? And then if it happened, it's a recurring thing. You're like, here we go again. I thought this person was genuine. I thought they had the right intention. Initially our conversations were stimulating and it seemed like we had this mutual bond. And then all of a sudden time went on, and then I saw the real person for what they were, because they eventually got exposed. And it sucks, because it's like, I think if you're a good-hearted, decent person, you always have optimism about the other another person. And you're saying, okay, they're nice, they're cool, they seem like someone that, I can get along with, and who knows, we can develop into a good friendship and have a good rapport, and maybe we can find out we got common interests and start doing stuff and, all kind of things like that. But then the reality comes, and it's not always favorable back to us. And it's like, okay, what do I do then? And then, in my case, personally, I just say, all right, well, that's my sign that I'm going to just say, hey, I'm going to see it for what it is and let it be. But at the same time, I'm going to make sure I protect myself and guard myself so, I don't become a victim of something that I don't want to be a part of.
Right. Like you said, it's such a letdown.
And it shouldn't be like that. Let me be clear on that. It should not be like that. I think it should be just a natural evolving of a friendship. But it's hard now because there's so many dynamics. There's so many different characteristics of individuals, and you just don't know what a lot of people's intentions are anymore. And that's the sad part about, where we live in society today. It's challenging. I'm speaking for me personally. I mean, maybe other people, it's natural. And, yeah, I mean, maybe for others out there, I mean, if you're out there listening, cool. If it clicks and it doesn't necessarily for me. And it's not that I feel any kind of way about the person. I hate them or anything like that, because I don't hate anyone. But I do understand whether it's a fit or not. And I'm okay with retreating from that interaction and saying, hey, okay, that was just a season and it wasn't meant to be anything long term.
Yeah. It's hard though. But yeah, I understand completely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Derek, for sharing. And I should say, I guess, for being vulnerable, right? Because you were on some level.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a reality of life. And obviously, it's always my hope that, I will be able to find genuine people and it'll be some good experiences. But, it's a part of life. So, I've accepted those things and, we'll see. We'll see down the line. Maybe next year I can tell you about my new best friend out there, y'all. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate your segment. Great topic. What we're going to do at this time, we'll take a break on the Primetime Power Show. As I mentioned, Dr. Christina Williams, she's taking a little extended break from the show, but she'll be back in a few weeks. So tonight, we're going to have the Place Decision, Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton coming up. You're listening to the Primetime Power Show on Primetime Power Radio, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. And welcome back to the Primetime Power Show, right here live on Primetime Power Radio. At this time, we're going to transition to the next segment, The Place of Decision, with Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton.
Well, good evening to our listening friends. This is your friend, Pastor Ben, here on the final leg of the Primetime Power Show. And I want to share a passage of scripture that I really believe will be an encouragement to you tonight. Actually, it's going to be Galatians chapter 6. And I'd like to read, just as a backdrop, verse 7 through 10. But verse 9 is my key verse. And let me just tell you a little bit about what this message involves. There is a process that the Bible talks about called the law of the harvest. And listen, that means whatever you plant, you're going to grow. Whatever you reap, you're going to sow. I don't want to give the negative. So often you've heard, different messages about the negatives of sowing and reaping. But this is something that I want to show that's got a positive side as well. And so I want to just take you through the scriptures just for a minute. And I want to show you the positive side of what God talks about in regarding your harvest. And I titled this, Your Harvest Will Come. And so the Bible says in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 through 10, I'm going to read this out of the New Living Translation, says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. There it is right there. I'm going to read verse number 9 one more time. So let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. There it is. Harvest of blessing. Don't get tired. Don't be weary in well-doing, because at the right time, in the right season of your life, life, God will make certain that your harvest of blessing will come. And so the law of the harvest is one of the greatest principles in the Bible. We talked about that before. And even you can read Genesis 8, verse 22, talks about while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, day and night. And see, here after the universal flood, Noah, he was the newly appointed leader of mankind, would experience the replenishment of the earth in the form of seed time and harvest. So this was not just for Noah's day. This is for our day. And so, in other words, you plant the seeds today, you will reap a harvest in the future. It's the law of return. And I shared before how what makes this so amazing is that, remember, I talked about God is always at work in our lives. He's always sowing good seeds. He's always sowing something in our lives. And at the right time of God's own harvest, the righteous seeds that he's planting in your life will begin to grow. You ever notice when you take a seed and put it in water? We used to grow these plants in school. As soon as the stem starts to come out, we plant it in the dirt. And the joy, you should watch the plants maybe for a week or so. And when it breaks through the dirt, that used to be the most exciting thing. And so it is with our lives. When God plants the seed in our hearts, it's just like a new plant. At some point, it's going to break through. It's going to break through the seed. It's going to break through the soil, rather. And you're going to begin to experience growth in your life, wisdom and strength that you didn't have before. You know why? Because we're in a season of seed time and harvest. And so let me start off by just reminding you today, and listen, I need to do this because I really believe that there are times when we get so discouraged and frustrated because of the things that we see happening around us. You look at the news and you see all of the different political things going on, and you don't think things are happening as fast as you would like them, and people getting rich by doing wrong, and you get frustrated because you find yourself working hard and doing the best you can, and sometimes you feel like you just can't get ahead. Well, that's not necessarily true in God's economy. So let me start off by saying this. There will always be a harvest in your life and in mine. How about that? You're guaranteed a harvest all the time. Now, let me say this. The thing about the harvest is this. Let me clarify what the harvest is. It's the season of happenings in your life that God both blesses and controls. That's what the harvest really is, in a true and a spiritual sense. Now, if you've ever grown up down south or in parts of your world, wherever, most I say down south, and you've ever had a chance to, go in the back and you see the cornfields and the cotton fields, and we used to just walk in it's something about that clay of the North Carolina fields used to be soft and real thin, real fine, but it was cool and it was nice to walk barefooted in it. And you know what? Farmers, they know all too well what the process of harvesting really means. You know how it works. You process the ground. You got to turn the ground every season. You got to plant the seeds. You got to do it just at the right time. You got to do it just before the latter rains. Do it just before the season begins to turn, because you can't grow certain vegetables in the cold weather. You got to get the collards before the frost hits the ground, and stuff like that. And so farmers understand that at the end of the season, the seeds that they planted will grow into a bountiful harvest. And that's so beautiful. And they'll stand over there and they'll watch field after field of corn and wheat and barley, and all the things that the farmer worked so hard to grow has finally come to fruition. And so it is in your life. There are something that God has planted in you. It may take years to grow, may take months to grow, may take weeks to grow, but there's a harvest going on in your life right now. We're never without the handiwork of God working in us to bless us. And yet the Bible reminds us that sometimes the harvest that we ourselves plant will grow as well. So the main focus of tonight, I wanted to focus on verse number 9, but I have to say that you got to be careful of the seeds that you plant in your life. Because if you plant seeds of discord, well, you're going to reap a harvest of confusion. If you plant seeds of dishonesty, you're going to reap a harvest of failed plans and things falling apart. Whatever it is that you plant in your life, be very careful that you plant the right kind of seeds. You know why? Because you're going to reap a harvest. And so the Bible reminds us in Galatians 6, 7, and 8, don't be misled. You cannot be cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. It's right there. Everything that you plant will grow. Every seed that you have planted. And sometimes in our own lives, we get frustrated because we figured now that I'm a Christian, certain troubles I don't expect to have. But you know what? There are certain seeds that we planted years ago that may just be starting to come to fruition, and we've got to ride it out. Sometimes you got to, how about this? In our new life with God, sometimes He has to return the ground of our life, get the old seed out of there, pull that stuff up from the root. And that's the work that God Himself has been committed to you and I, that He's going to work in us, and He's going to uproot the stuff that's just been planted in our lives, and He's going to plant new seeds. That's why your faith is stronger. That's why your courage is greater. That's why you're able to love others. That's why you're filled with wisdom and understanding, right? Because God is planting new seeds in our life because He wants a greater heart. So the other thing I want to remind us of is this, that when you look at the fact that the Bible talks about this whole principle of seed time and harvest, and you remember when I read out of our key verse, don't be weary in well-doing, for in due season or at just the right time we'll reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. I want you to remember this, and this is a main thought here, that God desires the greater good for our lives because it's a reflection of His goodness. Let me say it again. God desires the greater good for our lives because this is a reflection of His goodness. The good that He brings into your life is a reflection of who our Heavenly Father is. He is the Father of goodness. It says He makes the rain to shine on the just and on the unjust. It says that in the Bible. You see that God looks after everybody. Amen. And so I want you to remember that God, He even made a promise to Israel. I want to show you that there's some consistency in the Bible when it talks about the harvest of blessing in our lives. When God formed the nation of Israel, it came out of a handful of people that were down in Egypt, and they grew to become several million people. And God says it's time to bring these people out. He knew what He was doing. It was a part of His strategic plan. But when He formed the nation, told Moses, go get my people out of Egypt, bring them to their own land, blah, blah, blah. God brought him out, and He gave them the Decalogue, the commandments, the 10 commandments, right, to be a guide. But there's something else that the Lord told them as time would progress. He made a promise that if they were to hearken to everything He says, that He will bless them in their going and their coming and so forth. I want to read that couple passages of scripture out of Deuteronomy 28, verse 1 and 2. It says, now it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all His commandments. Listen at this, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. Look at that. Now, isn't it amazing that out of all the things God could have promised them, He made a promise that if they were to obey His voice, if they were to obey His commands, that He will set them high above all the nations of the earth. And listen what else it says. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Now, you know what it means to be overtaken by something? I do. I remember when I was just a kid and one of the neighbors who needed me to go to the store, and she lived on the second floor of a building, second story, and she would tend to drop the money down out of the window. She'd ball a dollar up and drop it down. She'll have some change and she'd drop the change down. And when I was lifting up my hands to catch the money, there was a black dog that used to be on the street called Salt. And I don't know what kind of dog he was, but he was mean, and every now and then he would get out, or they would let him out deliberately. And this one particular day, as I was reaching for the money, as the lady was dropping it from the second floor, he started pursuing me, and they were like, run, run, run. They were telling me to run, and I got to running, but he overtook me so quickly, he bit me right on the back of my thigh. And so I understood when I read this passage what it means to be overtaken, something that overpowers you, something that runs ahead of you, right? The blessing of God goes ahead of us. It overpowers us. It's something that you have no control over. It's something that you don't have to generate. God does this thing. And the beauty of it is that there's some things that are set in motion when we follow God's path. When you follow this command, when you make up your mind that you will walk according to the word of God, you let this word be your guiding light, that the blessing of God begins to set its course in your life. You begin to experience a harvest of blessing as a result building from the outcome of God's word. Listen, y'all, this is amazing. This is really something I really want you to catch tonight, because so often we get caught up in the world's point of view. We want to prosper like the world tells us, that if you don't drive a certain type of car, if you don't have a certain type of house, if you don't make a certain type of income, that you're not blessed. Well, that's not necessarily so based on God's economy, but God promises that he will bless us, and even talk about how he'll open up the storehouse. You read Deuteronomy 28, maybe like the first 10 verses when you get a moment. Look at some of the things that the scriptures promise that God will do. He'd bless their going and their coming. He'd bless the fruit of their womb, the increase of their kind. Listen, he would bless their land, and he would bless their offspring. I mean, God promised that he will put his hand of favor on every part of their life. Why? And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. There it is right there. That is the key to this whole thing. And we need to make sure that we are following the path of God through the word. And if we follow the path of God, we will set ourselves up to be blessed beyond our wildest imagination, right? All right, listen, let's take a break. When I come back on the other side, I got a few more things I want to share about seed time and harvest, because I guarantee you, listen, and I not only do I guarantee, but I believe that God is working out something far greater than we can imagine. Not just, how about this? We know heaven's going to be beyond human comprehension. The work that we do on earth will store up for us a bountiful harvest of glory when we get there, when we see God, when we see Christ for himself. But all of the labor of work that we have done here will make that day so splendid. All right, let's take a break. When I come back on the other side, we're going to talk about some other principle that has to do with seed time and harvest. Your harvest is going to come, and it's going to come because God desires your greater good, because it only reflects who he is. So stay tuned. Don't hang that phone up or turn that radio off, but join us again in a few minutes as we come back here on the Primetime Power Show with your friend, Pastor Penn.
And welcome back to the Primetime Power Show on Primetime Power Radio. We're going to resume with this segment, The Place of Decision, with Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton.
All right, here we are back on the other half of the Primetime Power Show, and we're talking about seed time and harvest. And so I want to remind you of something that's very important. Now, let me read our key verse one more time, and this is Galatians 6:9. So let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we do not give up. Now, I want you to remember something in this verse, because it talks about if we don't give up, right? If we don't get tired, if we don't stop doing what is right, if we don't stop doing the right thing. I believe that there are times when the outcome of our harvest can be slowed down because of us. And I believe it can be slowed down. The harvest of our blessing can be slowed because we sometimes hinder the process. We don't follow through on the path where we need to be. Let me give an example. Sometimes we're praying about events and circumstances, and just because we prayed for 3 days and nothing happened, we stop praying. When you have no idea what God is working behind the scenes, because the Bible says the prayers of the righteous availeth much. You see what I'm saying? And so sometimes we stop far short, or we just get frustrated doing the right thing. You might say to yourself, I'm tired of always having to be the one, to be the initiator. Or you might be trusting God to open up a door, and you might say, man, I've been looking for a month, for 2 months, and I'm getting tired of looking. And you might just start falling back and pausing. But the Bible reminds us that we should not become weary. Let us not get tired of doing what is good. At the right time, at just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up, right? And that could be pertaining to many things. Sometimes people are in school, our kids are going to school for higher education, and because a class is hard, they drop it. When had you stuck with it and pushed through it, you would have finished that course and been well on your way. But sometimes we stop short of the goal and we don't follow through. And guess what happened? we don't receive the outcome of the work that we would have been blessed with had we pursued this thing, had we stuck with it long enough. And so let me share this in a closing thought, that you and I have to learn to push through by faith until your harvest comes. We've got to learn to push through. That's what it's all about. The farmer understands this, and the farmer carefully chooses the seeds that will bring the greatest harvest. You and I must learn to hang in there. We've got to learn to sow good seeds. We got to learn to have faith. We got to learn to have some initiative, some stick-to-itness. These are all good seeds. And then you got to wait for your harvest. And when we talk about harvest, we're talking about the bounty, the abundance, or whatever deliverance that may come as a result of the blessing of God in your life. You got to push through by faith. You can't be a quitter in this game. You got to learn to stand on your feet and trust God at his word. I believe that the Apostle Peter learned this lesson kind of the hard way when they were on the storm on the Sea of Galilee. And I believe that they were in the boat. Jesus was sleeping and the storm blew over at the same time. And the boat was rocking and pitching. And they thought that they were going to perish. And this must have been a horrendous storm. They said, Lord, don't you believe, aren't you concerned that we are going to perish? And, sitting back there sleeping. And then Jesus stood up and he rebuked the winds and the waves. That was one example, where he challenged their faith. You all should have known who I am by now. How about when Peter came out on the water? He did it for a minute until he looked away. He saw the Lord walking on the water and he said, Lord, if that's you, let me come out with you. And he reached out, told Peter, come on. And the beauty of the story is that when Peter took his eyes off Jesus, he began to sink. And the Lord didn't rebuke him, he didn't rebuke him outright, like, Peter, why didn't you do, he said, why did you doubt? Or as the King James, where is your faith? What in the world? You were doing this, Peter, you had it, but then you began to doubt. And so it is with you and I. Just at the crest of our harvest, we get discouraged and we get frustrated and we lose our sense of direction, right? So let me do this. I'm going to stop here. You know why? Because I got like 5 more principles that I want to share, but I don't want to cram them all into one night. Okay? So I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to come back next week, God willing, and I'm going to pick up on this message of seed time and harvest. I want you to remember what we talked about tonight. Let me read my key verse just so you'll be able to pick up where we left off. So let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we do not give up. I said that there will always be a harvest in your life. Remember that. Seed time and harvest, sowing and reaping. Whatever we sow, we're going to reap. There's always going to be a harvest. Second thing I said is God desires the greater good for our lives because this reflects his goodness. God desires a great and a bountiful harvest in our life. You know why? Because it reflects who he is. He is the God of goodness. It's his character. It's all through the Bible. You look at every man or woman in the Bible who has ever put their faith in God and look at the outcome of their circumstance. Remember what I said? I learned to push through by faith until your harvest comes. Don't stop praying. Don't stop short of the faith cycle. Stay in there. Hang in there with God till he answers your prayer. Ask and it'll be given. Seek and you will find. Knock and the doors are going to be open. Matthew 7:7-8, for everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks will find, and to the one who knocks the door is going to be open. Remember what I said tonight. Your harvest is coming. You just got to wait for it. God guarantees if we do his word, your harvest is going to come in your season. All right? So listen, I'm going to bring the rest of it to you next week. But whatever you do, wait for your harvest because it's going to come. And may God bless you tonight.
Thanks so much, Pastor Penn. What we're going to do tonight, we're not going to take a break. Actually, we're going to take a break first. I'm out of the way. I forgot. I still got one more segment to go. So I'm going to come back with our final segment, Business Knowledge. Now we're going to talk about the importance of website maintenance. Thank you so much, Pastor Penn, for a great word. What we're going to do at this time, we'll take a break on the Primetime Power Show, and I'm going to come back with our next segment right here on the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. And welcome back to the Primetime Power Show right here live on Primetime Power Radio. Thanks for being a part of the broadcast show 425. We're going to transition to our final segment, Business Knowledge Now. I'm Derek May, and I'm just going to be with you for a few minutes, but I thought this would be a good topic to raise up tonight, the importance of website maintenance. And if you're a business owner out there, or if you're someone that has a website for the purpose of selling a product, or you have a service that you're offering, more times than not, you probably have a website. If you don't have a website, you definitely need that as part as your branding and a big tool for your advertising and to be able to sell what you do as well. But for those that already have a website, one of the greatest misconceptions is they think it's a one-time project. They invest in the project, and then once it's published and is available on the internet, they feel like in some cases that's pretty much it. But actually, that's just really the basis. That's the beginning point of starting the journey of having a website for your business. And what I wanted to share tonight is how important it is to maintain that. That's what site maintenance basically consists of. It's a lot of elements to it, but you want to make sure that you understand first and foremost, it's an ongoing project. It's an ongoing tool that you're going to always be able to utilize for your business. And if you do it right and you do it in the most effective form, you're going to reap the benefits from it. So let's jump into it. Some of the items, we'll list about 10 things that we'll share. Why it's so important, because some people don't choose to keep their sites updated. They don't choose to keep them adding features and making sure that everything's good and keeping it at a level where it's going to deliver the presentation that you expect your customer to receive from you from your website. So let's talk about the first thing that's very important, why you want to have site maintenance. And if you don't have a professional or you don't have someone in-house that's handling that particular role, you definitely want to reconsider that as soon as possible and think about where your website is, when was the last time it was updated, etc., and really take note to what we're sharing tonight right here on the Primetime Power Show. So the first thing in regards to the importance of site maintenance is this: security. And we know nowadays that's one of the great things that you need to make sure that are in place, because regular maintenance, what that's going to do to your website, that's going to help reduce or almost eliminate and protect yourself against some potential threats. And we know there's hacking nowadays, there's malware, there's viruses, there's so many things that can come from websites, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of that. So having that regular maintenance in place, and particularly patching and updating, because if your website is based off a content management system, which is the majority of websites are nowadays, it's a platform, more times than not, they're going to have some plugins, they're going to have some updates to the version that your website is running on, and you want to make sure that those things are updated, that they're tested. A lot of times you get updates because they're patching and they're fixing something that was potentially buggy, that was broke, or could be a possible vulnerability in the future. So security is probably one of the top reasons why you definitely want to make sure you have site maintenance implemented in your website. You want to make sure you're having your website at a level where it's always healthy and in a good state. So that's extremely important as well. So the next thing is that you want to always be doing things to improve your site performance. So when you do regular maintenance, such as updating, you're making sure that my site is running at an optimal level. It's going to improve your page load times, which is very important. A lot of search engines do factor that in regards to ranking and clarifying whether or not your website is optimized and it's suited and it's all the things that's involved that is going to give your users or just potential customers or just anyone that may be interested to be able to visit your site, and they're going to get a good experience because your site performance is going to be at a level where it's going to be acceptable. You're not going to turn off your potential customer or your existing customer. So you always want to make sure your website presence has that performance in place and that it will be a better user experience on their side as well. And speaking of user experience, that's the next thing we want to talk about. One of the things that's also important about having a website and keeping it well maintained is that it's going to provide a better user experience for anyone that comes on the website. And most of the time when they have a pleasant experience on a website, it normally will increase engagement. It normally will allow people to come back, and you'll get the conversions that you're looking for. For instance, if someone goes on your website and it's really easy and really simple to be able to buy a product or to contact you in regards to a question that they have, or to get pricing in regards to services that you offer, and it's really simplified and it's done in a way that it's streamlined and it's well illustrated and is well published, then what's going to happen is they're going to have a positive user experience. Some people will even compliment you having a quality website, being able to have all the elements that they need, what they're looking for to get what they needed when they went to your website. So user experience is always important. It's also one of those things you always want to make sure that every so so often you're periodically looking at the flow of your website for different important tasks that potential visitors may use. So, you always want to make sure that things are working properly, but also if improvements can be made, you want to be proactive in relation to saying, hey, I can do some things and let me work with my site maintenance, my webmaster, my team that handles my website, and see if we can make that a more positive, a more easier experience for the user. Because remember, that's going to give the very big impression. Most of the time it's a first impression, especially if you're an online based business and you don't really have a brick and mortar. You definitely want to make sure that your website has the best presentation and user experience possible. The next thing is search engine optimization. So that helps in regards to improving your site search engine ranking and visibility. Those results, when you type in a Google or Bing and you put in a specific keywords, you want to hope to be one of the ones that's on the first page. So regular site maintenance, that's going to always help because it's going to make potential customers be able to find you online easier. Your pages are going to be optimized. They're going to be updated, and it's going to be important for you. And speaking of updates, the next thing is content management. So what is content management? That means basically the ability to be able to update and manage your site content and making sure that it remains relevant, make sure that it's accurate, and most importantly, it's up to date. I don't know how many times I know from my experiences that I've seen so many websites that they're outdated, and it's very obvious. They have old content, or they have old advertising on there, or they have some outdated text that really needed to be updated. So also, search engines love when you're updating pages and adding changes as well. So content management is very important in regards to making sure you have a site maintenance plan in place so that when you do want to add something to the site and you have someone that can manage it and get the update and get the change up there relatively quickly, it's going to really make your business look like you're on top of your game. It's going to make it appear that it's a very active business that's functioning, and you always want to give that type of positive impression. The next thing is compatibility, and that's a really, really big one, especially with all the different browsers. And we have Windows, we have Mac OS, we have Linux, we have different operating systems, and then we have different web browsers, Chrome, we have Firefox. There's a lot of different options out there, so you want to make sure Microsoft Edge, of course, and you want to make sure that you have the compatibility. And when you have maintenance in place, that's going to be another aspect where it's going to make sure that your site is compatible with the latest browsers and devices. Remember, it's mobile now. Everybody's not looking on their laptop anymore or their desktop for websites. Most of the time, people are searching and looking for things on their phone. So you want to make sure your site is responsive. You want to make sure the compatibility is on multiple devices, as we mentioned, and it's going to make sure at the end of the day that your site is fully accessible to all different types of users. So compatibility is very important. And when you have a site maintenance plan in place, you have a professional that knows to check for those things, particularly after updates and changes, making sure that nothing is broken and that it's still functioning in the way that it was designed and developed. Another thing is analytics and reporting. So site maintenance includes monitoring, which is very important because you want to make sure that your site is up. You want to make sure you have some information to analyze how your site is performing. And you also want to get some insight, or they can give you some insight through data that can help you make some data-driven decisions, and that's going to improve your site effectiveness as well. So if, for instance, you're looking at some statistics and you're noticing a certain particular page on your site is heavily being visited all the time and you're getting conversions from that, so that's good analytics to know, because you can then develop a strategy, develop a plan to say, hey, you know what? This is a hot spot on my website. Let me make sure that if I have something else I can promote, I can take advantage of. Let me put it in that placement because I'm already getting visitors already coming to that particular centralized page. So I want to take advantage of that. So it's important to know site maintenance, understanding how your site is performing, getting some insights, getting some data, so then you can make decisions on utilizing your site even more effectively than you did before. So the last three things is this. The first one is scalability. Regular site maintenance, once again, is going to make sure your site is scalable. So what does that mean? Scalable means that it can accommodate a lot of traffic and all the user demand, and hopefully, a lot of people are visiting your site without experiencing some downtime or other issues. So you gotta make sure that you have the right infrastructure in place to make sure it can handle the load of what you anticipate in regards to how many visitors coming, especially if you have, let's say you have this special that is out of this world and it's a limited time deal, and you have it where it's a call to action where they have to react instantly in order to get this discount. Now that's probably going to spike up your traffic, your internet traffic on your website. So you want to make sure you got things in place so that your site is scalable enough to be able to handle that, so that's very important. So the next to last thing is brand image. So keeping the site well maintained, that's going to enhance your brand image. It's going to enhance your reputation. It's going to project that you're a professional, that this is a legitimate business, and it's going to develop credibility to your existing and potential customers out there. And you want to make sure that the representation of your website, that it matches the branding of anything else that you utilize for your business. And you want to be able to relay a message and information that your customer is going to know instantly that this is a real business. This is a business that can be a benefit to them. And whatever you're offering, whether it's a product or service, that they want to utilize it, they want to take advantage of it, and they want to give you their business. And that's ultimately what it's all about at the end of the day, making sure that you're gaining customers, getting some new customers, and building a flow and a system where you're going to continuously have the benefit of great customers buying from you. And obviously it's going to affect your bottom line in a positive way. And the last thing is think about it. And we think about, okay, this is going to cost me a whole bunch of money. But at the end of the day, when you have regular maintenance, it can actually be a cost saving for you because it will possibly prevent some major issues or some breakdowns or some things that's happening to your site. Let's say if your site goes completely down, it's going to be probably a lot more costly to fix it because you didn't have a site maintenance plan in place where it probably would have been covered. And since you didn't, now you have to get quoted. And of course, someone's going to go back, depending on how substantial the problem is, they're going to say, hey, it's going to cost you this. And you're going to be at the mercy of paying them and waiting for them to take care of things. But if you have a site maintenance plan, more times than not, you'll be able to give them a quick call. Or if they have some monitoring in place, they'll be able to identify ahead of time that if there's a system that went down or there's something major that is affecting your website from being utilized in the way that it was developed, then they can come in, they can troubleshoot it, they can find out what the root cause and provide an analysis and hopefully come up with a resolution or some type of mitigation to be able to assist. So cost saving is definitely a part of that as well. So having a site maintenance plan and investing into that, whether it's a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, however you develop the agreement, that's going to be able to help and benefit you as well. So think about it like this. It can be a time saver in the long run, just in the case that something happens, and we know nothing is ever 100% as much as we would like it to be that way. The reality is that things do happen, particularly from a technical standpoint. Every so often, it's a slight possibility that there can be an issue that arises, and you want to make sure that you have someone or a team in place to be able to provide that maintenance so they'll be able to help you during those times if a potential issue rises up that's challenging and that's affecting your business. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for listening to those tips in regards to the importance of website maintenance. So I just wanted to provide some awareness out there. I know there's a lot of business owners out there and they have a website, but it's really not being used as an effective marketing tool or a tool for e-commerce or whatever purposes that it serves. So think about making sure you have a site maintenance plan, reaching out to a web professional that will be able to let you know the benefits and why it's very important. Hopefully these 10 things will help you as well. You gain a greater understanding, a greater knowingness. Maybe before you didn't know it was all those things that needed to be a part of a website. Now you have an understanding and now you've been exposed to this information and hopefully it can be a help to you. So that's going to do it for me. I'm Derek May. Thank you so much for listening to us. That's going to wrap up our show. What we're going to do, we're going to take a break, and on the other side, we're going to share our closing remarks. You're listening to the Primetime Power Show on Primetime Power Radio. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Primetime Power Show is available on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out content that features exclusive guest interviews, full shows, segments, our support offerings, and much more. To find us, just go to youtube.com and search for Primetime Power Show, or visit primetimepowershow.com and click on the YouTube social media badge to go directly to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and show your support for the Primetime Power Show. We appreciate your listenership and patronage. Primetime Power Radio offers talk, inspirational music, and more. Are you looking for a platform to share your content? Consider Primetime Power Radio as an option for radio shows and recorded media to share, such as podcasts and more. Primetime Power Radio has slots available to choose from to secure the best day and time and offers you an extended audience to give you the exposure and avenue to be heard. Primetime Power Radio is available on many platforms such as TuneIn, Radioline, Radiodeck, and Deezer apps. Just simply search for Primetime Power Radio and we're ready to be listened to. The radio station also streams on Primetime Power PrimetimePowerRadio.com. Advertising options are also available that you can take advantage of. Learn more about Primetime Power Radio at PrimetimePowerRadio.com or email your inquiry to info@PrimetimePowerRadio.com. Primetime Power Radio, radio that uplifts, inspires, encourages, and informs. The Primetime Power Show can be heard on many different platforms via podcasts such as Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and many platforms that support the podcast feature. Just search for Primetime Power Show, add us as a favorite, and you'll receive a notification each and every time that the Primetime Power Show add new content via podcast. So check out the Primetime Power Show via podcast today. The O Insurance Group specializes in health and life insurance services that cater to meeting your needs. The O Insurance Group provides expert services in health insurance assistance such as Medicare education, medical advantage plans, Medicare supplement plans, prescription drug plans, dental and vision, group health insurance, and the Affordable Care Act. The O Insurance Group LLC also delivers professional services in life insurance assistance such as final expense, term life, whole life, universal life, and variable universal. Interested in getting the help you need right now? For more information, call Sharita Oldhams at 1-844-585-THEO. Once again, that's 1-844-585-THEO or 1-844-585-8436, 1-844-585-8436. The O Insurance Group LLC, health and life insurance done with you in mind as we change one life, one day at a time. Do you want to support quality programming that aims to uplift, inspire, encourage, and inform, and also gain exposure and ignite your brand through multiple ways of promotion? The Primetime Power Show offers advertising opportunities that range from audio commercials, web banner ads, show mentions, social media promotions, and much more. To learn more about the advertising opportunities we have available, simply go to PrimetimePowerShow.com and click the advertise link to access the page with all the details. You can also send your inquiry via email to advertise@PrimetimePowerShow.com as well. We have custom advertising packages that cater to you to get the best options you want to campaign. Join a great team and media outlet by advertising with the Primetime Power Show today. Is it time for you to bring in technical support to assist in what you're trying to accomplish? Are you in the need of professional services that support web, computer, and business services? Mayworks since 2000 has offered a variety of help and assistance that can partner with you to bring what you possess to full form. Need a professional website with ongoing maintenance support? Yes, we can do that. Do you have a business that needs proper branding and exposure on social media? Do you have related issues dealing with computers and technology in general? Find a true solution to all your issues and let the Mayworks team become the service provider of choice to assist in your IT and business-related needs. Learn more about Mayworks by visiting our website, Mayworks.com, or give us a call at 484-466-5460. We're also available on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Mayworks, working for your success. Welcome back to the Primetime Power Show right here live on Primetime Power Radio. Thank you so much for joining us for show 425 of the Primetime Power Show. Want to remind you, next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live right here on Primetime Power Radio. Join us for show 426 if you're marking it on your calendar. That's April 27th, 2023. We're looking forward to sharing with you, and we invite you, as I mentioned, tell your family members, tell your friends about the Primetime Power Show, and we'll be right back here 7 p.m. Eastern Time on next Thursday night. Want to give thanks to our supporter again, the O Insurance Group LLC. They offer great services for all your health and life insurance needs. Give the O Insurance Group LLC a call at 844-585-8436. The number again is 844-585-8436. Also, you can learn more about their great services by checking out their website, oinsurancegroup.com. That's oinsurancegroup.com. Also, want to remind you, we got advertising opportunities available right here on the Primetime Power Show. If you're interested in checking out details, check out our website, primetimepowershow.com. Click the advertise link, and on that that page, you'll see an awesome special, 4 straight weeks of your audio commercial, 8 total plays, show mentions as well. Also a banner image ad on our homepage, link to your website for only $75. A great opportunity to be able to promote your business to our audience and also to support the Primetime Power Show. Win-win if you ask me. Definitely something that you can consider and take advantage of. Go to our website once again, primetimepowershow.com. Click the advertise link. You'll learn more about that special and all the other great packages that we have available. And if you've been listening, checking out some of our audio commercials, we do produce those commercials in-house, 30 to 60-second commercials. So if you're interested in advertising with us, we would love to work from you. So please consider us. And if you have any questions, email us at advertise@primetimepowershow.com. Also want to let you know, if you're interested in our previous content, couple platforms, we have it available on our YouTube channel and via podcast. Either way, you can search by putting in Primetime Power Show. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like our content. That's a great way we can know that you're listening, and it gives us some analytics to know that you're checking out the content. And as always, we definitely appreciate that. If you're opening up your favorite media app to listen via podcast, search Primetime Power Show. And then once you find the show, add it as a favorite. Every time we upload new content, your device will be notified, and you'll know when the next live show or interview is available to listen to via podcast. And also on our website, primetimepowershow.com, you can click the podcast link and you'll be able to hear and listen to some of our previous offerings as well. And as always, thank you so much for your support and your listenership. PSAs, if you have a community-based event or program you would like to relate to our audience, the way you can submit it to us is by email, psa@primetimepowershow.com. All we ask is that you submit it by next Tuesday. That will give us the opportunity to review your content, to approve it, also get into the rotation for the next live broadcast on next Thursday night. So once again, if you have a PSA, email us at psa@primetimepowershow.com and please submit it by next Tuesday. Thank you so much. Finally, we want to encourage our listeners to check out our official show website, primetimepowershow.com. On the website, you can learn more about our radio personalities, learn about upcoming shows, also listen to Primetime Power Radio 24/7, 365, talk, inspirational music, and more. And as I mentioned, you can check out our previous content of the Primetime Power Show. A lot of things that we have available on our website. Also on the homepage, we have our social media badges, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Do us a favor, click on the badge. Please add, like, and follow us if you're not currently, and we definitely appreciate the support. We do post on a regular basis on those platforms, and also we would love to hear from you. So send us a message, share a message under one of our postings, send us a private message, or if you want to email us, you can always email us your feedback at feedback@primetimepowershow.com, and we promise we will definitely get back to you in relation to getting your feedback and giving you a response. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Once again, thank you so much for joining us right here on the Primetime Power Show, live on Primetime Power Radio. I'm Derek May, along with Tiffany Joyner and Reverend Dr. Leroy Pendleton. You've been listening to the Primetime Power Show on Primetime Power Show, streaming on primetimepowershow.com, primetimepowerradio.com, and also featured on the TuneIn, Radio Line, Radio Deck, and Deezer apps. Have an awesome night. Have a wonderful week, and we'll be talking to you soon.